The next verses in Luke that I am talking about is Luke 15:11 through 32. And it's a very popular story of the prodigal son. Story of a man that had two boys, one in rebellion, the other one faithful. We all know that the one in rebellion took everything that his father would give him and went out and lived a horrible life, and ends up as a Jewish kid, young Jewish man, eating with the pigs. That's Jesus' way of showing them how the road of sin can sometimes end very embarrassingly. And I know everybody likes to go and stop at the idea of the forgiveness of the prodigal son who rebelled. The father gave him a new ring, put a robe on him, and restored him. But parables in principle of interpretation, if I can put it that way, really have one point. They make one point, and you have to understand the parable of the prodigal son not so much in the prodigal son, but in the attitude of the good kid. Because Jesus is illustrating in chapter 15, remember what we said last time, a true follower of the Lord loves and has a concern and a compassion for sinners. Not a self-righteousness like the Pharisees, but the idea of, yes, we sure can get ourselves into some real fixes, can't we? Jesus is driving home that the Pharisees did not have a love of sinners. They had a love of self-righteousness. And actually, the parable of the prodigal son is making the same point of love of the sinner and rejoicing when they come to know the Lord. If you go, yes, it's great, that verse that the father summons his servants, has a feast, my son has returned, let us eat and be merry, in verse 23 of chapter 15. That's Jesus' way of saying you seek out the sinner, you love and seek them out, and you rejoice. But interestingly, the good son did not rejoice. This is somewhat like the Pharisees, who look down on people. And the point here really is not so much the repentance of the son, but the disdain of the good boy. Oh, how can you do this for them, Lord, when they're so bad? Self-righteousness. It says in verse 28 of chapter 15, but the good son became angry, wouldn't go into the party. And his father came out saying, come in, verse 28. But the son answered in 29, look, for us many years I have been serving you faithfully, never neglected what you told me. Self-righteousness is what's being indicated here. I didn't do what he did. I was better than that. Don't we have a tendency to look now as Christians? The ones that scare me the most are those who were raised in the church and never did any great sin, because they don't understand how great forgiveness can be. Jesus said, he who is forgiven little loves little. He who is forgiven much loves much. Jesus is driving home the fact by the parable of the prodigal son, not so much about the prodigal as the self-righteous son needs to rejoice. Look what it says. He says this, when the son of yours came who devoured your wealth with prostitutes, and you've killed the fatted calf. And he said to him, now look, this is the key. This is the point of this parable. Not so much restoration of the prodigal. We love that. But for God's people to rejoice and not be self-righteous, to rejoice in helping sinners, to see a love for the sinner. And the father said to him, my child, you've always been with me, and all that I have is yours. And here's the driving point. But we have to be merry and rejoice. For the brother of yours was dead and is now alive, has been lost and now is found. And that goes back to the beginning of this chapter in Luke, where Jesus is telling self-righteous Pharisees, you need to have a love for souls. They didn't. And this good son didn't have a love for his brother. He had a self-righteousness. And Jesus is telling us that we need to have a love for lost souls when they are found.